Thank you for hanging in there with me and for coming back. Both are whatever. So I'll just keep going kind of where I left off before, and I'm going to go pretty quickly through these slides because what I'm going to use are common scriptures. But I ended kind of with there are storms and that we don't get an opportunity to get away from a storm. They will come. They will come. We're told that. But this story here was after Jesus fed the 5,000. And we all know the story. But sometimes if you read it and pick up on the lines in the midst of what you're going through, you always hear something different, right? Every time you're in a different phase of life, you hear the scripture differently. If you're different people say, you just hear something different. But in this scripture we talk about, we know Jesus went to be alone. He had fed those 5,000. He sent the disciples on a boat. He went up to be alone. He came across the water when it was, I think it's interesting, he was water and he was looking at them and they go, wait a minute, that's Jesus. Jesus, they cried out. Jesus didn't go to them. They cried out to him. He came. Doesn't he want us to do that? He wants us to cry out to him for help and cry out to him. He gives us that courage. He removes the fear. Take courage. It's I. Don't be afraid. Jesus is in our storms. He's with us in our storms. He got in their boat. He calmed their storm. Sometimes we may not get to leave the storm. I had a lot of times in my life that storm just kept raging. Those waves kept crashing. But he calms me. He comes in that boat. He comes in my life and he calms me to help me get through whatever that is that I'm dealing with at that time. The last verse in this, I think we miss a lot. And this one caught me one day. This is the next verse after they were completely amazed. Right before that, the last line is, he got in the boat with them, the wind died, they were completely amazed. For they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. Hello, you just watched him feed 5,000. You've watched him do all these miracles. You've been with him. What's going on? Am I grateful for what he just did or am I mad? Because here comes another storm. Am I frustrated because those storms didn't go away? I don't know. Just a thought. I never had caught that verse before till recently. I was like, their hearts were hardened. May my heart never be hardened. Philippians 4:4. We know the scripture, right? Rejoice in the Lord always. Rejoice. The Lord is near. Pray about everything. Pray with thanksgiving and pray giving your requests to God. He tells us what to think about. What am I thinking about? Am I thinking about truth? What is noble? What's right? Pure, lovely, and admirable. Can't get that word. Admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. Am I thinking on those things? Am I dwelling on those things? I have to practice that. To practice it. I do it over and over again. I have to practice what I've learned, what I've received, what I'm hearing. I practice. And at some point, it becomes a muscle memory, right? We can even do that with our minds. We can create a positive muscle memory. Sometimes we have to really work and really practice to do that. Think of basketball players. It's basketball season. How many free throws do you think those guys do in practice? Because what is that? That shot's from the same spot every time. It's muscle memory. The body knows just how much to do. Of course, they miss them. But anyway, it's a memory. The body knows what to do. We don't always hit it perfect, right? We're not always going to be perfect. We're going to miss a few. We're going to be off target a little bit. But my practice is aiming for that goal every time. And when we do this, there will come that peace. Again, that peace that transcends understanding. And it's a peace that will guard my heart and a peace that will guard my mind. And it's a God of peace. He is with me. He's in me. He's the reason I can have the peace. Philippians 4:10 through 14, again, a scripture we use a lot. I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but I had no opportunity to show it. You had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content in whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in every and any situation, whether well-fed or hungry, living in plenty or in want. I can do this through him who gives me strength. Yet, it was good of you to share with me in my troubles. And my God will meet your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. The scripture teaches us to be content, to learn that secret of being content. How do I learn that? Again, it's practice, practice, practice. It's that muscle memory. And how can I learn to be content? It's His strength, relying on His strength. That's the secret. And I like the last line in another verse. It said, "It was good that you helped me when I needed help." Again, it's a reminder. We live in good old West Texas. Pull up bootstraps, get it going, right? You can do it. You handle it. Get your big girl pants on. Go. Get it done. Sometimes we need help, and we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable and allow that to come to us. But it's for the others. It's their good gifts and their fragrant offerings that are pleasing to God. So that's what it is. They are giving their gifts, and they're giving them to you, and it praises God. Courage is required. Kathy gave me a shirt that says brave. We're required to we need to be brave. We need to be courageous. And how can I do that? A lot of these scriptures show that. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Do not fear. I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. The Lord is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer, my God, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. And I'm courageous. I had to have courage, right? I'm walking paths I didn't know, I didn't understand. I didn't know how to take the next step. But God was with me. He provided people. He provided paths. He provided words. He provided what I needed and strengthened me. I'm strong because He's holding me up, and because I know prayers of others are holding me up. This courage and your strength drive out that fear and discouragement. There was a lot of times that fear can creep in, and that you can feel discouraged. Am I ever going to be something different? Is life going to ever look different? And God is my fortress and my stronghold. When I need to know I'm protected, I know He has me. 2 Corinthians 12:19, but He said to me, 12:9 through 11, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why for Christ's sake I delight in weakness, insults, hardship, and persecutions and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." I delight in weakness, hardships, and difficulties. How is that? And in my weakness, God's power is revealed. And it's resting on me. It's His strength carrying me through. I had one of our elders here one time when I was in that middle single years of a lot of things going on. And he said, how are you doing this? How is it? And I said, it's not me. I'm the vessel. I'm the body walking the steps. But it's not me. I pray to God for words and timing and for courage. And He gives that to me. And hopefully that's what is seen, is that you're seeing Christ and God's strength in me and through me. I learned to find praise, comfort, and rest. Praise be to God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion, the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. David said, "I saw the Lord always before me, because He is at my right hand. I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices, and my body will rest in hope. Because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead. You will not let your Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the paths of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls." Praise to the God of all comfort. Praise for all that He gives us. There's abundant comfort in Christ. Abundant. And I find rest. I can find rest where? In the hope. We live with a hope. Like I said, that roller coaster I'm on, I know where it ends up. My hope is in heaven. And he provides rest for our souls. That weariness, if you've ever felt that complete weary, how do I physically get out of bed and make it through a day? He gives us the rest we need so that we can do the next thing. I'm complete. I'm made complete. Another verse we all know, James 1:2-4. Consider it all pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. Your faith will be tested in life. We don't get away from that. Yet that testing of it, endurance. You think of that if you were walking that path, that up and down the hills. We were flatlanders out here. We don't know hills and mountains. I lose my breath quickly. But that takes endurance. It takes a lot of endurance to do that. And we have to persevere. I can't quit. I got to keep going. I got children to take care of. I got people that love me. I've got things to do. I have to persevere. And that perseverance will mature you. Some of us get to do that at a much younger age than others. But that's okay. Some people get to go through life with very minimal trials. Doesn't make them less mature. Their perseverance and their trials make them mature. I will not lack anything. It tells me that I will not lack anything. And I'll receive the promised crown of life. That's why I can consider it joy. When it starts out with consider it pure joy, I'm thinking no. But why? Because I'll get the crown of life. Trust. Trust is a big one. We go through life trusting in different things, but there's one person I put trust in that will never fail me. I know, and I remember telling a family member, I know God will take care of me. And she said, yeah, but. And I said, there's no yeah, buts. I know. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. We don't always understand the why, but we trust the one who knows it all. Hard will come. We will struggle. I like this. Chris Johnson said this in a lesson not too long ago. Righteous fear is trusting God. So he knows we're going to be fearful, right? He knows we're going to face something. The apostles in the boat, that storm had scared them. They were afraid. Yet, putting it in God and trusting God makes it righteous fear. I thought that was a very, very neat point. God is with us. Emmanuel, God with us. Don't be afraid. And it's a choice. I do believe trust can be a choice. I have to choose that. I have to choose to rely. I have to choose to find my strength in him. I have to choose to believe he will give me what he says. I have to choose all of that. And in that process, you will develop a habit of trust. Given trials over and over, what's your habit? What's my habit? What am I practicing? This came to as my husband and I were talking, and he said it's to the point that I don't know any other way but to do it by faith, because my trust has been challenged much. And then my response has changed. Through all these struggles and through all these ups and downs, it's interesting to watch that even though I have a husband with a new level 4 diagnosis, my response was not as life-shattering as it was the first time. Not because of age, not because of any of that, but because I think I learned to trust. I developed that habit of trust. And just here, again, I've said that there. Above all, I have to trust. I have to choose trust. I have to practice it, develop the habit of it. But living in trust allows me to live with the hope, peace, and the joy. So then Betty wants me to, because how do we use this? How do you minister to others with your story? How do you, what helped me? What do we do in all of this? And I was talking to some of you on the break. You have a story. Everyone has a story. Share your story. I'm part of a writing workshop that I'm contemplating doing further things, being encouraged to. But she said, we're losing the written word. We don't have the written word like we used to. And people want to know your story. Families want to know your story. Maybe it's something you share more often. But when you share your story, your paths will cross with someone, and it'll allow you to reach out to them. There was a time in my life that I got people's stories so quickly, and I don't know if it was because at the moment I was very transparent about what was going on, and then I would hear a very hard life story that they had. I didn't know them, but they would share it quickly. So sometimes our transparency and our willingness to share that allows others to that freedom to share their story and find that strength from you. In my own life, in my own personality, I have this feeling that I don't want to step on anyone's grief. And it's real. It's just what it is. I can remember one time walking in church, and there had been a man diagnosed with a similar illness as my husband, and I saw the wife, and she literally turned and walked away. And I didn't take it bad. I said, I'm your worst nightmare. I'm 43 years old and a widow. I'm your worst. Nobody wanted that. I got that. At that moment, she couldn't face that. But that was okay. So sometimes that makes me say I don't want to step on anybody's grief. But I heard it recently said that grief isn't meant to be shared, but comfort is. And I thought interesting, because that's a great way to say, I've often said, I know how you feel. You lost your spouse. I know how you feel. No, you don't. Because I'm not you. I didn't walk your life. I didn't walk your story. I didn't go down your path. Those are yours. It's simpler to say, I'm so sorry, or just give a hug. Not to say, I know how you feel. I could say that. I don't say that. I'm so sorry for your loss, because I know it's yours. When you're talking with someone that has lost a spouse or a child or something, at some point tell them what that person meant to you. I wanted to know you missed him, or I didn't know what that story he had with you. Those were positive things. Him being remembered made me feel like it helped soften that blow of the loss. I wrote to a friend one time that lost her husband shortly after mine, and I said I understood that she had to walk the path of grief, but that it was her personal path and it wouldn't look like anybody else's. Their love was unique. Their life was their own. Her grief and path would have its own rivers to cross, its own rocks and boulders to get through. I believe God brings things to you. We're not always sometimes seeking them, but sometimes God brings them to you. He opens doors. He brings people to you. He brings you to places. Are you open to it? Be open to it. Be present. Be available. Those are ways that you can minister back, is just being aware. Sometimes we get so busy in our lives and so busy on our social calendars or our whatevers that we forget to just be present and be available. So some of the things that are helpful or things that we do, and this one seems very rudimentary, right? Physically, but yet we're really good. It's a reality. We physically need help when we're going through struggles, different things, whatever that is. Food, we're really, really good at this. Lemoyne's daughter said, we members of the church may not do everything well, but we sure know how to feed each other. We do. We're good at that. And of course, it's a great help to not have to think about how you're going to feed your family or feed that, or when you're out and about, or if you're at the hospital all the time, to have a snack, to have something there. But if you do it, make it convenient for them. Sometimes I would say we're bringing it at this time. That time may not be convenient for me. I may not be home. I may be at the hospital. I might be it might be somewhere else. So, we're good. Like I said, we're good at that. The world's a little different than it used to be. But I had at one time some people dropped off 7 casseroles. So I had them. It was a long illness at a time. So I had meals that I could pull out at my convenience when I needed them. Remember breakfast items? I laughed. I'm like, people forget breakfast items, right? When my daughter died, I had a brother that remained, and about a week later, he was looking asked if I had something, and I said, well, I don't know everything. And that moment, I realized everything I'd eaten for a week had been brought to me. So again, people were taking care of my physical need. They knew that I needed to eat something. I don't even know what I ate. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what's there, but people brought it to me. And I also learned that a rich chocolate cake will do wonders for a crying headache. Y'all know those crying headaches? Oh man, that just, it's that pound, and there's nothing but Tylenol didn't cut it. Caffeine, you give me one of those Shirley Bobbitt's chocolate cakes, about 2 bites later, that headache's gone. Every now and then she'll say, do you need some mud? So it's fun to have those stories. And it makes, like, again, I love that line about, allowing people to give them. That's their offering. That's their fragrant offering. That's their gift. It's their praise to you. House cleaning, yard work, childcare sounds routine. My daughter was in the hospital for quite a while the first time, and I had ladies come to me and say, we want to clean your house. I'm like, I'm 25. I clean my house. I'm good. They were like, don't you take away my blessing. Ooh, they were teaching me, weren't they? They were teaching me. I was so grateful for those older women to teach me. And, okay, they cleaned my house and did my laundry. What a blessing. What a blessing they were. Ryan was 2 when Lindsay was born. That's, quite a different age, or a difficult age. I needed consistent childcare for him. He was not used to daycare. I stayed home. So I had friends that stepped in to be that consistent person for him in Oklahoma and here when I came to Lubbock. We had yard angels for about a year. When David got sick, they just appeared. They just showed up. They would just be in my yard. I just called them my yard angels. They took care of the yard. The next year, I had to figure out how to start that lawnmower. We did it. Financially, we're really good at this too. I think, we do the cup of blessing at sunset. There's a lot of other things that we do. It can be harder when it's a long-term need. And at that point, we may need to help them with resources. David was the sole income when he got sick. He was paid on commission. We were blessed by many here that got us through until we could get other things in place to where we could manage. I really think this is why we are called to live beneath our means, that we should respect that lifestyle so that we're prepared and that we're ready to help when those needs arise. You may ask the person who's hurting for what they need, but you better be ready for anything. Are you ready for anything? If you aren't ready for anything, then offer what you can do and see if you can use it. A friend asked me one time, and I said, I need milk and toilet paper. She laughed, and I said, that's what I need. I need that. My kids need that. And to this day, if something happens, she'll show up with milk and toilet paper. But those were the days. Remember, we didn't have Amazon. We didn't have DoorDash. We didn't have all the conveniences we have today. And so, again, today's world can look different because I can order my toilet paper on, if I have to, right? I can do a home delivery from United or H-E-B. So our world has changed in those needs a lot. But, again, that could be a financial burden for others that didn't need that. Or think of things that they may not even know that they need, something that might have helped you. A person gave us a family photo shoot, and I thought that was very thoughtful, that when they thought to offer that as a gift to us, it would be our last family photo. Betty sent, I know I talk on you a little bit, but she got a deck of OU cards. My husband was a huge OU fan. OU was mowed in our yard. OU flag hung, and the Texas flag hung below it. But she had a deck of OU cards and sent them every week with ladies writing in them and signing them. And what a blessing. I didn't know I needed that. But what a blessing it was to me that every week someone was coming with a card that was signed. Then we're here to help emotionally. Sometimes we just need to listen. Sometimes we need to be willing to listen. When people ask you, we talked about this, how is our saying? How are you doing? Do you really want to know? And I stopped a lady one time, and because she said, how are you doing? I said, do you really want to know? She goes, I really do. And that formed a friendship that I need. And I learned things about her that I didn't know. And there was some commonality there, but sorry about that. It was pivotal because, if you don't want to know, then don't ask. Honestly, don't ask, right? If you really don't want to know, just say, good to see you. Glad you're here. Because when you ask, they may want to share a lot, or they may not feel up to it that day. And they give you the short answer, change the subject, that's their call, not yours. Let that be what it is. I used to have people ask me, and they go, I didn't mean to make you cry. And I go, they're my tears. It's okay to ask me. They're my tears. You didn't create them. You didn't cause them. They're mine. I think we should change our greetings, too. It's good to see you. I really do. My children struggled along this line with people asking how their dad was doing. That was a struggle for them at 17 and 11, 12. And as those years went on, they just struggled with it. And so I told them, lead the conversation. If you see someone, immediately ask them how they're doing. Ask them about their day. Shift it. And I think we need to be ready to help others. And I didn't know I needed to do that for my kids until I was in the midst of that. But I had to help them find a way to relieve that burden. During this emotional time, I a lot of times would be asked which was harder, losing a child or a spouse. Most everyone would say that losing a child was the hardest because it just shouldn't be, doesn't fit the natural order. Yet at 43, I would say losing my spouse was harder because he was the one I was going to grow old with. My children I was going to raise and they would move on, but my husband was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I knew I was going to be alone raising children. I thought it was much harder. Remember, I lost my family in reverse order. My child, my husband, then my father. So maybe my perspective's not normal, but that's all right. Sometimes we long to feel normal when everything else in the world is not normal. In a lengthy illness, we learn new ways of doing, new ways of living. And I would often say, this is my new normal. And it might change in the next 5 minutes or the next 2 days, but that's my new normal. So my sister got me a plaque that says, the only thing normal around here is the setting on the washing machine. Right? That is, and that's true. Sometimes that's very true in a home. That's the only thing that's normal. The sweetest thing of just being beside someone, somebody mentioned her name here, but it was Mickey Kokakiwa, a dear friend of mine, and she brought her daughter and my son Ryan, my firstborn, were good friends. At 7 years old, they were just buddies. She brought him over, and Hannah and Ryan climbed in that tree house while he laid his head in her lap while he cried. So with that sweet childlike moment, taught me how sometimes you just need to be there to let them cry, not say a word. And sometimes emotionally, it's you want to find that benign person to talk to. Counseling. Counseling can really help. It helped to speak to someone that I wouldn't see in church or in my daily life. It was a blessing for me. There are grief groups. Maybe you're not ready to talk one-on-one. Maybe you're not ready to share that much. Maybe you don't even know what you want to share. So grief groups are a great place to start. There's Grief Share. There's Hospice has different grief groups. There's some for children that can be a part of it. I had my children be a part of it both times. And what's good about it is it's good to know what's normal and expected in grief. There are some patterns. They've studied it. They know some things we're going to go through. Even though it's a personal journey, it's going to be their common emotions. And one thing I learned interesting, that an aversion to noise is a common thing in grief. I could not handle a lot of noise, and I thought, and my son called me out on it. He goes, "Mom, you're going to your room a lot," and I realized it was the noise, and that was part of my grief. There's a lot of books on grief. I'll go over some of these resources here that I have. You can find, there's many options. If you've seen it, you've been around it. There was a book that when I first lost, of course that's 30 years ago, was called Good Grief, and it said here you go through shock, all your steps, and then acceptance. Well, we kind of have shifted a little bit that. We've gotten a little better at it, and talk about that, because I talk about there is this point of an acceptance, but more so it's a time that we learn to live with that grief. I often used my scar as an example. I had to, shortly after David died, I had to have a neck surgery and have a spinal fusion, and when I came out, this scar was bandaged. It was red. It was mad. It was ugly. It was visible. Everybody could see my big old red scar. And over time, I don't think you see that scar. He said it would go in the wrinkles of my neck, and I'm there. I have wrinkles now. It's in my neck. But anyway, there's some really good stories. People have asked if I wrote a book. I have part of my story in this one here. Courageous Women of Faith. Kathy Crockett, a member here, has put together 2 of these, and a Courageous Men of Faith. I have some extra copies. If anybody would like one, you're welcome to take one. Catherine Lee, she's the one that introduced us to this chart. She has a book, Interrupted. She wrote this so that her 11-year-old daughter could understand. She shows how God interrupted her life and how she has now taken that pain and put it to amazing purpose and helping re-heal those that have been trafficked. Lindsay Holt, we knew her by a different name when she was here. She lost her sister in a tragic car accident. And she's a beautiful writer. She's very eloquent. And my daughter will say, Mom, she can express what I feel. And some of us are not as gifted with words as others are. She's very gifted with her words. Again, there's more. There's Imagine Heaven. If you've ever read some of people's description and depictions of heaven, these are great books. The Hurting Parent. Where's God when it hurts? These are some really good ones too. This is one I haven't read. It's on my shelf. And it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And when I heard the title, and he mentioned, it was from a counselor here, and he mentioned it, I was like, oh my, that's why we call it Sepnover. In October, my daughter died, my husband died, my grandmother died, and we lost a job. And I like to call it Sepnover. But it's very interesting. September comes, and my body gets heavy. And it's a shift. And it's very interesting, how the body remembers. And it's like, I'll be going along. I'm like, what is it? And I'm like, oh, it's that time. It's that deal. This year was a year that it kind of got me. I've been here 34 years. First 17 years with my first husband, 17 years he's been gone. It's kind of a milestone, right? He would have turned 60 with me this year. And that was just kind of like what all that he's missed out on, and that body remembering that. But those are some really good books. Betty wanted me to bring in Blended Family. Wow. What can I say? Well, I will make this statement. It is the hardest thing I've done to date. The hardest, honestly. There are so many emotions. I remind you of that picture there. So many emotions under one roof. You remember what it was like the first time that you got married and you had to share your space, share your home, share your kitchen? That's tough, wasn't it? You had your ways, you had your stuff. Okay, do that with 4 teenagers. I heard it from up here. I heard it up here all the way back there. Right. We had made the house. I don't have a big house, but we closed in another part of the garage where each had their own room. They had their own locks. They had their own space. We put a little bathroom area for the boys to have their spot. We created the space as best we could do. But, yeah. Tried doing that with teenagers and hurting teenagers. They're hurting. They've had their loss. It's hard to put it together, even with you have the same faith, we've known each other for years. We'd shared birthdays, baseball games. I have pictures of Mitzi holding my girls in their lap. We have pictures of Logan and Taylor playing playing t-ball together. We've known them. We're together, but it was still hard. And living under that roof was a new way. There's one good author. Somebody here went to school with Ron Deal. You're still here. So Ron Deal, this was the first one we started with, was the only resource I could find. We've been married almost 13 years. Can y'all believe that? But it's called The Smart Step Family. He takes it from a very Christian perspective and gives you great ideas and great, very practical advice. He's now come out with more. You can see Smart Step Dad. He has a Smart Step Mom. I've lost that one. Maybe I didn't want to read it. No, I'm kidding. The Smart Step Family Marriage. We did a class here, the Blended Family. We used to say we're the Brady Bunch. Really, we're just... we were missing one extra, my daughter that died, or else we would actually be the exact Brady Bunch, 3 girls, 3 boys, and us. And I said, I understand Alice. Who was Alice in the Brady Bunch? She was the mediator, right? She's who they go to with their problems. Who they go, we didn't have Alice. But man, I wish there was an Alice in my life. But anyway, he has a series that you can do kind of as a class. I think 8 sessions and do a week. He's got the videos, the old school videos. I don't know if he streams now or not. He may. But he has the videos. He has the participant guide. And this was a great time for us to get together with other people in our church that were new blended families, different ages, different life stages. But we all came together and did a series. I think it's probably time to redo one. But he has got some of the best resources, I think, out there. Bob and I also went to a marriage retreat early in our marriage, and that was showing our children that our relationship was important. A lot of times when you're single and that becomes the key relationship, they're depending on you. And so it was a process of them learning that we were the united front and they were our children that we loved dearly, but come along, that we had to continue to work on our marriage. Step family, blended family, not my favorite words, but we really don't have any other language to describe that. Ron Deal starts out with saying the step family is not a blender where you throw all the ingredients in and they come out as one great dish. It's more like a crock pot. You put all the ingredients in, they're separate, they stay separate, they take a long time to cook, and the carrots can take the longest time. We have our carrot. The meal comes out tasting amazing though, but it's true, he says about 7 years before it starts to feel like a family. Talking to some other people, they'll go, that's about right, about 7 years, and that seems like a long time. And we didn't have that. We didn't have our children at home 7 years. So we were trying to do all that we could there, but it takes that time to actually feel like a family. We don't call ourselves a crockpot family. We haven't come up with what we're going to call that yet, but we just usually say we put our families together. Our kids, I don't like calling them stepchildren. For me, that just makes it feel less than. That in how we've used it culturally, in media, in joking, this wicked stepmother, or we've not used that in positive ways, and I just don't like what that comes with. Some people are starting to use bonus mom or kids. Maybe that feels better. But really, the language is driven by the ones living the life. So whatever language they're using is appropriate for them, and we take that on. We often say our children, Bob's daughter, my son. We might designate it like that. Our kids call us the parentals. Have you asked the parentals what we're doing for what such and such? Or Mom and Bob, Dad and Jana, or even Mom's husband. Especially my oldest, who never lived in the home with us. Peyton's probably the only one that will use stepdad. She was 13 when we married, and she's the baby of the family, and she's the only one that got some time with him without any other kids around. So she does have a sweet relationship with him. Counseling, again, a very important time. I've got to go faster, don't I? With a new family, we hit rough patches. It was tough. Like I said, it's the hardest thing I've done to date. I didn't know this road. And with all the personalities, with all the hurt that was going on, we sought out counseling. Sometimes we just wanted to make sure we were handling a situation correctly. This is what we believe we're doing. Is this right? Is this a good thing? And we would receive some feedback on that. Sometimes we'd hit a roadblock we were not going to agree. We just weren't agreeing on, either with kids, with us. And we sought out family counseling. We sought out individual counseling. We sought out couple counseling. We did kind of all of that. I often say that Bob and I didn't come with luggage, but we came with baggage, Oh, no, reverse it. We came with luggage. I didn't like to call it baggage because I packed my bags. I intentionally came into this. So in all of that, and needing this counseling and needing all of this, it was a reminder to you, my children didn't choose this. My children had to come along because Bob and I made a choice. And so respecting that and understanding that, and sitting in the chair having the conversation, I know this. You thought this is a family any of us would have a couple years ago? Never would have I dreamed that. Never. I took my son to counseling. I mentioned my son that struggled. It just got worse. He was spiraling out of control. I tried every type of counseling that there was out there for him. I even went to psychiatry because there is mental disease that runs in the family. There's some bipolar and schizophrenia and some things that I wanted to be sure I was ruling that out. Psychiatry said he's just making tough choices. Someone asked me, and just to let you know, he's doing great. It was a 10-year road, a 10-year struggle of in and out. Our carrot on the other side is starting to come out. It's taken her 13 years. She's just now starting to say, ask about me, or even want to talk to me or hear what I have to say. So that's been, it took a long time. And we did special counseling for her with some of her struggles that she was feeling and to help with some of the things she was acting out. Certainly we prayed, we sought wisdom, asked for discernment, but sometimes you just need help. And I'm grateful that we've taken away the stigma of counseling. Used to be, again, if you're a Christian, you don't need that. It's been said. I've heard it. You're a Christian, you shouldn't need counseling. Sometimes I don't know how to walk that path, but someone else does. My daughter even called yesterday. She said, Mama, she wanted to buy these boots. Is that reckless? Not if it's in your budget. She goes, well, that's how much it costs to go see the counselor, so I'm going to do that. I didn't ask her, so she eventually told me. She said, people listen. I have great friends. My husband will listen. They don't have the tools to help me. I thought, what a smart 25-year-old. Go get some tools. She needs some tools to work there. She was a tender age of 8 when her dad died. And as she continues to mature, that's one of those ugly things about grief. As we mature, as we go through life, as we go through all of these things, we go through another grief. And we have to live that again at that maturity, at that incident, and all that goes with that. I talk a lot about stepping away. I show a lot of beach pictures, but during difficult times, we know Jesus went to be alone to escape the crowds, and maybe we need to do this too. When Lindsay was in the hospital, she'd been there for 7 months of the first year. I told David, I'm taking the car. We had one car. I said, I'm taking the car. I'm going to Corpus. My sister lived by the beach. I'm going. I'll be gone for a week and I'll be back. And he freaked out a little bit. And I said, if I don't leave, there's not going to be nothing left of me. That feeling that I'd given everything I had, I was spent. And that when you know that feeling, you need to step away. You need to go take care of yourself. One day in work, after I was single and I walked into the door at work and I'm like, oh, my legs are killing me. I'm just hurting. And felt like I'd done 100 squats, run the stairs, and did wall sits for an hour. I wasn't working out. I was hurting, and I was like, okay, it's heavy. Now my physical body feels it. It's heavy. Everything I'm dealing with, the chaos of the home and the people in my life. I stepped away to that messy beach so I could be alone. I even did it after Bob and I got married. I was just exhausted. I needed time to reflect, to work on myself. My schedule was crazy. I was working full time. I was learning how to be a wife, children's work, sports schedules, emotions, you name it. I took my sister to the beach with me. That really pretty beach again. Went back there and just needed to work on me. And I was reading a book at the time. It was called Who Switched Off My Brain? Kind of an interesting book, right? But it's not a Christian book anyway. And she talks about your thoughts and how the formation of your thoughts can be seen, how the formation of your thoughts help you do what you do. And it's like, I got to work on my thoughts. It's kind of, children are a little bit like puppy dogs. They know what you're feeling. And I'm an open book with my face. I get, my Bob's son calls me on it all the time, your face. Can't help it. I'm an active listener, but I listen with my face. But I needed to work on my thoughts because it was that reminder, these children didn't ask for it. It was difficult. We were putting together different ways of raising children, different values, different ways we spent money, different ways we disciplined, everything we were trying to put together. So you know what I'm saying? Whew, it's a lot. It's a lot. Again, we have to remember to make our marriage important. When we look for Ron Deal and look for things beyond the series and the Smart Step Family, everything's about working on the marriage. Everything's about that because second marriages fail often. And I can see why. The stress is incredible. The stress is immense. And without you taking time to work on yourselves and work on that relationship, it can be very, very difficult. And then the last one, where am I? Dementia. There's my mom with me. Again, many support groups for this. They're available if you want those, just to know what some of the steps and signs and processes as the mind, as a friend once said, it's the death of the mind, the slow death of the mind. And it has a process to it and how that affects every part of daily living. I went to counseling with my mother. I was at a point, she was very angry. She was angry that we'd moved her. I understood it. We moved her from her home. We took her car away. And like I said, forgot she needed it. And the counselor explained to her that we're more proactive than we were 20 years ago. I had a grandmother with dementia. I watched that. I watched her be lost on a road. I watched her be lost in someone's driveway. How scary. How scary. He said, we don't do that anymore. We see the signs and we remove you to a safe place before you get hurt, before the danger happens. We know of a man that was in August using newspaper and using the stove to light his newspaper to put it in the fireplace. And it was August. It's not cold anywhere in Texas in August. The caregiving is different with dementia. It's a parent or a spouse. There's some good, like I said, there's some really good books on it. I know there's a gentleman that's written a book about how that love changes with his wife as he cares for her. And it's difficult with dementia because the mental aspect of it makes the physical care for them so difficult. We tried to have some help in the home for my mom. She thought they were there to work, and she'd put them to work all the time. So that they don't understand that. And I just think that it's harder to provide care at home when that decline is mental, not physical. Just a whole different type of loss. It's often called the long goodbye. I lose a piece of my mother all the time now. I haven't lost her smile and her recognition of me, but I miss her. And again, I go back to telling your story. I had a dear friend. I think I must have missed a page. There's some things in my mind I was going to say that I didn't. But when David got sick, I had a dear friend, Stacy Smith. She gave me a journal. She's a journal. I wasn't. I didn't write, but she gave me this, and she wrote in the beginning of it about it, and I filled the pages. And there's some healing things about physically writing things down and getting them off of you. Especially, I didn't have my husband to share it with anymore. I didn't have that confidant to share things with, so I wrote them in here, and that act of writing it down was my way of release for that. I told someone else, I said, we're losing the story. I did a writing workshop, and she said, we need to tell our stories. If it's not for anybody but just your family, write it down, tell your story. They may not know what brought you to where you are, why you made that choice to do this. They were young, they were babies, they didn't know. Tell your story. And it's funny because my son keeps giving me things. Mom, write it more down. So maybe if you don't, not a good writer, I found this one that says, tell me your story, Mom. And it has prompts in there if you don't know what to do. It has some good prompts in it if you want some guidance on some things to tell your story. But do that and share that. I think, and again, there's, like I said, we live in a world of technology and resource. There's blogs. I find there's people you can follow that are beautiful writers that will have quotes on grief, quotes on things that just have a lot to share. So, there are so many things. I feel like I've gone super fast and tried to just share just the highlights of things. There's so many things that live in our heart at one time, right? We have grief and we have gratitude at the same time. We have loss, we have love. We've often heard it said, grief is the price we pay for love. We have hurt and yet we have hope. And we sit in this juxtaposition and this tension and this living with all of this at the same time that our heart, this strong muscle in our soul holds. So we have to learn to live in that and to feel what we need to feel, share what we need to feel, and process at your own pace. Allow other people in when it feels impossible. And above all else, live with hope. Let the gentle whisper of hope or the loud trumpet of hope comfort and guide our broken hearts. And to journey with God will be our greatest joy.